you want to take your career international, several jurisdictions like some of the more leading jurisdictions, maybe UK, US, even in Asia, maybe Hong Kong even. I do think that like Singapore, many places, even Middle East, Dubai, like those places, they have a more like well-developed, or like I would say like more international vibe, or the kind of transaction they have been dealing with are more like global or like more multi-jurisdictional. I think that's a good starting point. And I do think that it will be difficult if you start in your own country where maybe there are not too many international law firms. Because I understand that I came across so many people, maybe from civil law jurisdiction, maybe even from India, they actually they don't have that many law firms, international global law firms back home. And that would be difficult. So I think it makes more sense to firstly do a master's degree in a different country. This is the first option, because when you do a master's degree, you have the ability to attend the events organized by law firms physically, and you can interact with the people there. And this is one of the most important things for applying for firms in London, because law firms care about whether you actually know them, whether you are genuinely interested in them. If you're someone randomly from another country applying to it for a job there, you never experience the firm, you never experience the interaction with the people there, you can't convince them that you actually want to work for them. So I think doing a master's degree is helpful in that sense, because you can actually be in that country and interact with the people there. I think that's the important thing. But alternatively, it is also not uncommon to see some people with substantial work experience and in their own country. They could potentially make a jump in their career in terms of moving to another country to work for, a bigger law firms. But I think that also is subject to several limitations or things. Firstly, like the visa issue, it really depends on whether you can convince like the employer that you are such a good candidate that they're willing to sponsor you, to work for them. And second of all, what kind of area of law you have been working in. For example, if you work in your home jurisdiction, the area you have been working on are not necessarily like international deals or commercial deals, then it's more difficult for you to make that jump to work on an area that you are not familiar with, even though you are an attorney with or lawyer with extensive work experiences. So I think you need to pick an area that also really suits you in terms of whether it is a more like international practice area or an area that is more attractive in a leading jurisdiction, maybe. I do need to mention that like if like those areas, for example, international trade, international law, even international law, you don't necessarily need to work for global law firms as well, because there are intergovernmental organizations. Even the organization I previously worked in Italy, it was a global international organization. And there were lawyers from Australia or maybe from other countries working for that organization. They were practicing lawyers for maybe a few years back home. So you can even make that jump to other intergovernmental organizations. So don't just limit your vision to, I would say, global law firms or international law firms, because there are other organizations or even companies, international companies recruiting foreign lawyers. So that's why sometimes I feel like the fact that you qualify in maybe more leading jurisdiction like New York, which you don't even need to study there, will be helpful in that sense, because you could potentially make that jump because you're a lawyer in a leading jurisdiction. You can potentially work for other international companies in other countries as well, because they need to handle a lot of like New York law stuff as well in that sense. And finally, like a point I want to make is networking is really important as well. Like that also kind of relates back to the first point, that you can actually attend events or to talk to the people at different organizations or firms, because sometimes like whether you're proactive enough to gather more information from people, that really affects your chances of success. Because in the past, I definitely reached out to so many people on LinkedIn, and I do think that you need to have a method of doing that. You couldn't just like blindly send messages to everyone. It's just like your application. You need to tailor that message to the people you're sending to. Because I obviously, sometimes I got messages. I pretty much know that some people, they just message them like to send this message to everyone, like just to get some help. Firstly, I think sometimes it might not be too respectful to do that, because you just make the like reader feels like you just send it randomly. You didn't target your audience, or you didn't even know me that well. and you send a message asking me for help, then I think you need to be respectful and actually read their background and mention that why you come across their profile and why you want to ask them for help. I think it is similar to law firm application in the sense that you need to let them know you're really interested in it, or like you respect the firm, or you actually have an understanding of that. So I think that's an important thing, like networking and actually taking a more proactive approach.
This thing really works well. First of all, now I think there is a lot of change in the way people think, because everybody is now getting used to working online and Zoom meetings and stuff like that. So right now there's a great opportunity for those who want to work with international lawyers to build relationships and even do things like research assistantship. You can help them to write articles, write books. You can collaborate on projects like, okay, let's compare the laws. Let's say, how does venture capital work in UK and in India? Let's see fintech companies in UK versus fintech companies in India. What are the challenges they face? Comparative study. And these things can be very interesting, and people would be happy to work on such things. If you reach out, especially there can be exciting things. Similarly, you can tell them that, okay, I can organize a webinar for you where I'll get Indians to attend, and it could be like, if they have an interest in business from India, and there is increasing trade between India and other countries. So you have India-UK trade, India-Canada, India-US, and there is a lot of work happening, right? So you can collaborate with people abroad now to do interesting things. And I think that can be a very interesting starting point, because once you have those interactions, then if you tell them that, do you think there's anything I can do to get an internship, or get even an online internship is fine, or I can somehow get a reference to do something, to do everything. Like, it just makes so much sense when you have already collaborated with people from that country. And it is easier now because you can sit where you are right now and start doing these things. I'm sure, Gordon, when you were looking for jobs in the UK or Italy, or maybe it was not as easy, but I think this pandemic, post-COVID, things are quite different. Even someone was saying that how venture capitalists are now ready to invest in a more wide variety of people, even if they're not close to them. And I think it's the same thing. Like, getting international jobs have become a lot easier now. On one hand, it is very difficult to travel. Yes. So you might be able to only travel next year. But this year, I think it is a great time to do online collaborations with people. You can jointly write articles with them. You can help them to do their research. You can manage their social media pages even, right? Like, people need help with their online branding and their social media presence and so many other things. Like, you can help them to make a podcast. Maybe you can make a podcast and invite them to come and be a part of it. So a whole lot of things are possible. And more you do these things, more you'll have very strong connections with people, and more there will be opportunities to build global connections and eventually a global.
I honestly think that the current situation with the virus and pandemic, it is bad, but it is also good in some senses, in terms of we kind of renovate the way we do things, like businesses, the recruitment process, the kind of events they are organizing. They usually take it online now, and there's so many virtual internships. The search in virtual events, virtual internships is actually crazy. You can see on LinkedIn, everyday people just organizing webinars. Even law firms are pretty much into the whole virtual assessment centers, interviews. So I think that definitely helps. Although it sounds weird if I say that the pandemic helps us in this way, in terms of actually getting things digital. Like, we can actually get opportunities all around the world. And I think so right now, if your financial situation allows you, if you have laptop, if you have resources, you have internet, I think you definitely have means to actually maximize your chances to have a more international career. I definitely agree that right now is a really it's bad, but also a good time in terms of actually putting yourself out there and seek opportunities at a global level.